my name is Erikka Tiffany Wells. I am a general sales manager for Walser Automotive Group. Right now, I am in Minnesota, Minneapolis, Minnesota, where it varies between 81 degrees and -30. I recently moved here about 6 months ago, trying to figure out the weather here and, on my journey to general manager. So what I want to do is kind of start at the beginning, take you guys back to when I first got into automotive and tell you my story, who I am. So the title of my presentation is called "It's Never a Gamble When You Bet on Yourself." That has been a theme in my life, is just betting on myself, taking risks, taking challenges, and taking chances for myself, for my kids, for my career. And hopefully there's a message that resonates with you along the way. One of my other quotes is "People are the new currency." If you know anything about me, I'm someone who always puts people first, right? My staff, my coworkers, my WOCAN sisters. It's really important for me to understand and make it known to people how important I feel it is to put others first and have servant leadership. So that's another theme in my story. So getting started here, my journey, the road to general manager. I think this is what most people think the journey looks like, right? It's very linear. You got dates, you got times, and maybe when you were growing up, you had this plan. What does it look like? When I was growing up, I actually wanted to be president of the United States. I was in middle school. It was one of my first speeches I did when I was running for a student body president of the 6th grade. I said, you know what? I want to be president. That was what I wanted. That was the plan. And while I haven't made it to president yet, I think it's interesting to just kind of watch how that journey happens, because as you'll notice, progress is not always linear. There's a difference between how life is supposed to go when we think about this straight line and how we imagine it in our minds when we're little, and then what really happens, which is all those loops and those twists and those turns and the things that kind of make it stressful and the things where we feel like we're going backwards and then we're going forwards. That's what it really looks like. So I'll tell you a little bit about myself. This is my dad, James Smith, my mom, Yvonne Watson, my sister, who's sitting on my mother's lap right there. And I grew up in Fort Ord, California. I was a military brat. Both of my parents were actually in the military. My dad was in the Army. He was a Russian-Spanish linguist. My mom, she was a journalist in the military. And I always remember just going, right? We lived in a lot of places. We moved a lot. Boxes and packing was the norm. What else was the norm is starting over. That was a consistent theme, is starting over, because you just never knew when you were going to pack up in the middle of the night and be gone. And because of that, my relationships were many and few at the same time. They ranged in breadth, but not in depth, because I would meet someone and we'd become friends. And then, you know what, I'd have to say goodbye. And this is before social media. There was no Facebook. There was no way to keep in touch. You literally were writing hand letters. So when it plays into who I am today, a lot of that ability to get up and just go and be free kind of came from that military background. It came from a family who just said when it was time to go, you had to leave. As a military brat, I went to 11 different schools between elementary and high school. I went to 4 different elementary schools, 1 middle school. I stayed at Los Arbolos the entire time, which was in California. But then when I went to high school, I was in 5 different high schools, from California all the way to Atlanta. You can see in these baby pictures here at Fort Riley, Fort Houston when we were in Texas, and then Fort Ord, California, where I spent a lot of my growing up years. What is coming is better than what is gone. I put this picture here of a plastic bag because sometimes that's what it was like, right? You just packed up everything, you put it in bags and boxes. You started to really realize that you didn't hold on to material possessions because a lot of times they got lost in the move. Stuff couldn't go. You had to let go of things so that you could hold on to something new. And that became a consistent theme in my life, is what am I willing to let go of so that I could get something else? And the release of possessions for people. Because for me, it was about relationships, right? It wasn't really about, it was more about the people that I could meet and along the way than the things that I could bring with me, because those things that were tangible would often get left behind. So here it is, it's summer, it's Atlanta, 1997. I'll never forget, my aunt asked me to come babysit that summer. Now I'm living in California and she says, hey, can you come babysit my niece and nephew? And I'm telling you, it was hot girl weekend. I had never seen so many Black people in my entire life. Right? I'm used to living on a military base where it's extremely diverse. And now I'm in Atlanta, Georgia, where you could walk to the mall and see Black people everywhere. It was fascinating. It was a culture shock. It was really just a different part of the world I had never seen before, coming from this little small base and then going to this big city where I saw people like me and I fell in love. I didn't want to leave. Now you ain't got to worry about being any freak pictures of me out there because I was too young, 97 to be a part of that. But what did happen was I met the love of my life. His name was Andre Bass, and we started dating. I'm living with my dad at the time with his beautiful Ethiopian wife, Hannah, and my little brother and sister, Jeremy and Christine. And I'm in love. It's high school. It's my senior year. And I end up pregnant. And I'll never forget how my dad found out. I was on the phone. I was talking to my boyfriend. Now, this is when you didn't have a cell phone. So we had home lines. I'm on the phone and I'm talking to my boyfriend at the time. And I'm telling him, I was like, how am I going to tell my parents? I don't know what I'm going to do. And my stepmom picks up the phone and she hears me talking about being pregnant and she loses it. She has two younger kids, my half brother and sister. She starts to scream. She gets my dad involved. Me and my dad end up leaving the house and going to have dinner. And we're sitting down talking. And he says, it was a very tough decision. He says, she wants you to leave. And I really don't know what to do. And I'm sitting here in this conundrum. I'm sitting here. I'm 3 months pregnant. I'm not showing yet. I'm in high school. And my dad is telling me that my stepmother, because of her Christian values, how important she thought my role model as a mentor to my younger brother and sister, and what would they think? What would they think of their older sister who's pregnant? And he says, she's making me choose that either you leave or she's leaving. And she's taking the kids with her. And I'm sitting here and I'm like, I can't allow my dad to make that decision and have to decide and have to choose. And so I decided to leave. At 18 years old, I leave, I drop out of high school. I'm going to get my GED. I'm staying with my boyfriend at the time. And I talked to my school counselor. My school counselor says, you're never going to be anything if you don't go to school. She's like, if you drop out, if you get your GED, she's like, the chances of you surviving in this world are slim to none. And she recommended I go to the clinic and take care of it. And I'm sitting here at 18 years old, living with my boyfriend, figuring out if I'm going to finish school or not, and whether or not I want to have an abortion. And I'm thinking about the choice that I'm going to have to make and what is that going to mean for the rest of my life? And what is it going to change the trajectory? Here's a girl who was student body president, right? Who's future business leaders of America. I'm in the gifted program. You know, I've got things to go to UCLA and these different colleges where, I could think of any career I wanted to be in. And here I'm having to make a decision between letting all of that go and raising a child. I made the right choice, right? My daughter, Akira, her name is my name backwards. She's a reflection of me. Here I am at 19 years old, me and her dad, trying to figure it out. What is life as a single parent when you're 18 years old and you don't have a place to go, you don't have a job, you don't have reliable transportation, and everybody's telling you that you're just not going to make it. Everybody's asking you, why did you make that choice? What were you doing? How could you get pregnant? You had the world ahead of you. You had good grades. You're a 4.0 student. Like, what were you thinking? You went to Atlanta and got pregnant? And here it is. I'm looking at this beautiful little face, and she was the new motivation. It was no longer about me. It was no longer about the decisions that I wanted to make. It was about her. And it was about more than that, is that making sure she had better than what I had. So I asked this question. I stopped for a second because I needed a job. I'm 18 years old. I'm a dropout. Have no previous work experience except for Burger King, a movie theater, and working at a grocery store. I'm a single mom. And I'm going to ask you, if you looked at that picture and if you were looking at my resume right now, would you hire her? Be honest with yourself. I'm not asking, would you hire me? I'm asking, would you hire her? The girl on your screen. Because it's very interesting now when I go to conferences and I meet people and they say, hey, yeah, I would definitely, how do I get someone like you? And I have to remind them where the beginning was, right? It was someone like her. And so often we forget our beginnings. We forget where we come from. We forget that past. And it's so important for us to look back sometimes as we travel our journey to remember where we came from so that we can focus on the challenges that we left, to remind ourselves that when we see it in someone new, we can relate to them. We can understand what they've been through. Someone decided to hire me. They took a chance, right? They took a gamble and they said, listen, we're going to let you be a preschool teacher, Valley Oaks Learning Center. And this was an interesting situation because it allowed me to bring my daughter to work with me every day. Daycare is $200 a week, right? I don't have a job. I can't even afford to put her in daycare so I can go find a job. So being resilient and saying, you know what, why don't I just work at the daycare and then I can get discounted daycare and I can make some money. I'm making $6 an hour, right? It's $240 a week, less than $15,000 a year. And I'm there for 2 years. I get promoted quickly. The director of the store, I got the parents, they love me. I'm painting and doing face painting with the kids, and I'm really trying to find my groove, but I'm still making $6 an hour, right? I'm on food stamps. I don't have reliable transportation. I'm getting rides to work. I'm late a lot just because I can't get there. I'm trying to raise a newborn and I'm trying to figure out life. But I'll say the Fleetwoods, was the people pictured in this photo, were my first mentors. It was my first example of what Black family business owners looked like, right? They took me in, they treated me like family. They gave me every opportunity in the world by saying, we don't see your resume. We don't see a high school dropout. We see someone who can do anything that they want to do. And she supported me from the very beginning. At the time, I was into plays and I was into theater, and I still thought I wanted to be an actress or a model. And they came out and they supported my shows and they supported my plays and they supported me, as a young mom. I remember getting from $6 an hour, my very first raise went to $6.50. And for me at that time, it was a big deal, right? It was a big deal to just get 50 cents more an hour so that I could support my family. There was days when I would be stopping at the gas station, digging in the backseat of my car, looking for coins just to have $2 or $3 to put in the gas tank so I could make it to my next check, right? Those were those times, those were those memories. That's what it was like raising my daughter, back in 2001, 2002. I say that because in 2020, Black households were 3 times as likely to not have access to a car as white households. This is a statistic that is important to me because when I think of the passion that I have for the automotive industry right now, it's a lot about remembering who I was then and the opportunities that I was afforded because I had reliable transportation. Because the difference between when I was able to get a car and get back and forth to work reliable allowed me to explore and look for new opportunities. So when we think of car poverty and the ability for people to have reliable transportation, a lot of times we get very transactional. We're thinking about the deal, right? Amanda, one of the co-founders of me, calls us, how many cars you got out? How many deals you got out? But are we thinking about the person behind it? Are we just looking for the funding approval, or the desking menu, or how much gross are we making? Are we remembering that there's a story of a young girl who just wants to get back and forth to work so she can pick her daughter up from daycare so that she can work? This was my car. It was an Oldsmobile Delta 88. I mean, this thing was broke down. I literally had to 2-foot it just to get the thing to start. I mean, it was a raggedy piece of crap. I mean, you look inside, you can tell like it looked like a couch cushion. It didn't have AC. You're rolling the window down. I can't tell you the days that I'd sit at the light embarrassed. And if you've had a raggedy car, your car is stalled out and you're sitting there with people are passing you, they're honking, and you're just trying to let them go by because you're so embarrassed that you're gonna have to get out and push or get someone to call you and get the car out of the street. But this was my life. This is all I knew. This was my story. This was my journey. And at the time, it was just about survival. This wasn't thriving. This was just surviving. How do I get day in and day out? I bought that car for $500, right? And for me, it took 2 weeks worth of pay just to get it, just to be able to afford it. And then I put hundreds, if not thousands of dollars just to keep it running. So one day I'm in my car and the alternator goes out, right? The alternator goes out in the car. I get to this Midas shop and the manager is Black and we're sitting there and we're talking and tears are coming down my face because I'm like, I can't afford it. I don't care how much you say it is, $200, $300. I cannot afford to get this car fixed. It's stalling out, it's not working. And he says, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, he's like, I can try to put you on some type of payment plan, if you can bring some funds in here. And I say, what about this? I work at a daycare. There's parents there every single day that have cars. I was like, if you can work out an oil change special, you give me a deal, I will take it back to these parents I see every day. And I promise you, if you fix my car, I will bring you business. When I tell you that worked like a charm, He said the amount of customers that were coming in to get oil changes off his coupon and the repeat business that he was able to get off of this offer from parents who were looking for a great deal anyway was just phenomenal. And he's like, you know what? At one point, I'm going to come back and I'm going to come get you. And here, sure enough, 2 years later, I'm still at the daycare. I'm working. He opens up his own shop. That's the shop you see there at the bottom. You Save Auto Repair, right? So he comes in and he comes to me and he says, hey, Erikka, I will pay you. How much are you making? And I'm like, I'm making $6.50. He's like, I will pay you $2 more an hour if you come work for me. And I'm like, in a car shop? Yeah. I said, I don't know anything about cars. I don't even like cars. He's like, listen, you'll always get your car worked on for free, and I'm going to pay you $2 more an hour. So I'm going from $6.50 an hour to $8.50 an hour. And I said, yes, right? My journey into automotive wasn't some noble thing to support women. It wasn't because I liked cars. It wasn't for any reason. In that moment, my tunnel vision was that I needed to get this job and I needed to work in this repair shop because it was $2 more an hour than where I was right then. I get in there, I'm working with him, and he wants to go get a dealer license. He says, listen, if we're in this shop and we can fix cars, what if we can go to the auction and buy cars and then we flip them and we'll get them repaired? And I think this is a fantastic idea, except for one thing. The shop owner is a felon. And he started his own business. He's a convicted felon. And unfortunately in Georgia, you can't get your license as a felon. And he says, Erikka, what if I put the license, the dealer license in your name? I'm like, huh? He's like, you have to go to the classes. You're going to have to, get the fingerprint cards, but I'll get you licensed. I'll get you bonded. I will teach you everything you need to know, but we need to put it in your name. That day I became a business owner. You Save Auto Sales was started in my name. I went and got my dealer license. Now I'm sitting in this dealer school, the Georgia Automotive Dealer Association. And as you can imagine what that audience looked like in the South. Right? I looked like I was probably there to take notes for somebody, right? These guys were asking like, what is she doing here? But here I was, an opportunity, because I said yes, because I'm stepping out on faith, because I allow a little smidgen of an opportunity to open up into something else, right? This wasn't some noble deed where he was like, hey, I just want to bless you with a dealer license. This is expensive. It costs thousands of dollars. But here was an opportunity where someone else was saying, hey, if you could help me, I will help you. And it catapulted my life because now I've got this dealer experience. I'm up there getting a dealer license. We're buying cars at the auction and we're bringing them back to the shop and we're flipping them and we're selling them and we're putting them back into the community. And I'm doing the marketing for the shop. So here it is. I'm a service writer doing marketing with my dealer license and I'm 21 years old. This was the beginning of my automotive career. There's not one path, right? There's not even the right path. There is only your path. And I think when we start thinking about where our life is going to go and we stop feeling like we have to anticipate the end result, I didn't know what the end result was going to be. I'm just living day at a time, week at a time, month at a time, trying to figure out what's next. My goal was just to get to the next paycheck, was just to pay my bills and pay my rent one more time. So I have my dealer license now, and I think I'm a guru. Of course I'm not, but I'm like, I got a dealer license. I could sell cars at this point, right? So car sales, it's a buy here, pay here. They're advertising, as you can see here, 14.9% financing. Like that's insane. This is how we advertise. We advertise interest rates of 14.9. I go into the dealership. I say, listen, I want to run your marketing department. I worked at this repair shop and I know everything there is to know about repairing cars and I have a dealer license. The guy laughed at me. He's like, if you don't get yourself out of my store, he said, either you sell cars and you get on commission or you get out of my face. So I came back and I decided I was going to sell cars. I was the only Black woman on the showroom floor. I'm working 12 hours a day. I'm going now from $8.50 an hour to full-time commission. And I have 2 children, right? I'm trying to figure out how I can feed them. But again, here's this opportunity. This is this gamble. I'm leaving the comfort of $8.50 for a commissioned sales opportunity because I wanted more. And more importantly, because somebody told me no. Right? He said, if you want to do the marketing, he said, you're going to have to start out in sales. Well, the story on that became, I ended up becoming the marketing director for the dealership, running the BDC. I got on every single commercial. I was on the show Auto Scoop, Auto Shopper. I was the voice of every radio commercial. I was the voice of every ad. If you call the number today, you will hear my voice on the voicemail, right? I ended up rebranding the entire marketing department and became the marketing director. So now I'm dealing with Auto Trader, and now I'm dealing with, TrueCar. I'm dealing with all these big names, and my name is getting out there as this young marketing director with no degree, who never had any formal education, but I had hustle. I had grind. I always wanted to work harder than what I was paid. And even though I was selling cars, I was in the BDC trying to figure out what they were doing. I was in the accounting office saying, hey, how do I bill out deals? Because for me, it was like going to college. What's interesting to me is that people will pay to go to college to learn a new trade. But when you're in your job and you're working and someone wants to teach you something, you say, well, you don't pay me to do that. I don't get paid to do that. I'm not learning that. You pay me first and then I will learn it. For me, it was the opposite. I'm like, well, if I'm already making a commission to sell cars and you will teach me how to do the finance and the BDC and tag and title work, then I'm learning on the job while I'm already getting paid in my current opportunity. And in that scenario, the money always chased me because I was always overqualified for the position that I was in because I knew more than the position required, right? And this was the beginning of an automotive career where I continued to push myself outside the limits. This was a statistic I wanted to share with you because it says nationwide, households headed by people of color are less likely than white households to have access to a vehicle, right? Female headed households are less likely than male headed households to have access to a vehicle. Asian American, Latinx, Pacific Islander are less likely to have access to a vehicle compared to their US foreign counterparts. What this means is that when you don't have access to reliable transportation, it limits your ability to thrive. It limits your ability to go find a job outside of your neighborhood. You have to ride a bus. You have to use Ubers and Lyfts. And at this time, they didn't even have that. So when I started thinking about that, and I'm working at this dealership and I'm charging 14% interest, and I'm watching these families come in and with bad credit, and they can't get approved, and they have 2 and 3 repossessions, and the cycle is continuing over and over, and they don't have financial literacy. And they're people that look like me. I'm not happy anymore. I'm looking at these interest rates. I'm looking at these balloon payments, these pickup payments. They had to pay $3,000 and $4,000 and $5,000 down before they could even pick the vehicle up off the lot. We one year had tax returns in the corner where we were literally doing people's taxes inside the dealership and then giving them an advanced tax return so they could put money down on a buy here, pay here car. And if you know anything about buy here, pay here cars, they're not the most reliable and dependable transportation, right? But for most people, this is all they had. This is all they had access to. And I'm selling these cars. So I got to thinking, and I'm like, how can I be part of the education, right? I'm on the back end trying to help sell cars and educate people at the last minute, right? When they're about to sign the deal. And I'm like, no, don't pick this car, pick that car. And hey, you should have paid these bills. I said, how do I reach them before they get here? So I decided I was going to go and do something different. I said, how can I go forward? How can I be ahead of this and reach these people before they ever get to the dealership? And I met a guy named Adam Goldfine. Now, Adam Goldfine had a popular TV show in Atlanta called Auto Scoop. He was on WSB radio. He was considered the Clark Howard of cars, right? So he did a consumer advice show and he knew everything about vehicles. He often would do remotes inside dealerships where he would come live and answer questions and get people excited about coming into the dealership. So one day I meet with him to talk about him coming to Pars Cars. And when we met in person, the first thing I said to him was, why are you here? And he's like, I don't understand. You booked me to come talk about coming into your dealership. I said, why don't you have a marketing person? I was like, the fact that I'm talking to Adam Goldfine, the one on the radio, the one on the TV, I'm sitting right in front of you now. I'm like, surely you have somebody to handle this stuff for you. You shouldn't be this accessible. And he says, I want to give you a job. Just like that. He says, the insight and the foresight you have to recognize this opportunity that I need a marketing director, which I do. He's like, how much are they paying you at Pars Cars? And about that time, I'm making about $27,000, $28,000. And he says, I will pay you $40,000 to come work for me. Bing, sold, sign me up. I'm now the marketing director for Adam Goldfine. I moved to a nicer side of town. I now have access to a nicer vehicle because he's the auto scoop guy. He has demos every single day. He's letting me drive his demo. My whole world is starting to change. My whole life is starting to go into a different direction, right? Now I'm being exposed to other people and other opportunities that I never would have done at the buy here, pay here. And I'll never forget, it's about my second year working with him. And he's like, Erikka, I'm going to give you a raise. And I said, okay. And he's like, I'm going to pay you $5,000 more a year. And I'm excited about it. He's like, but you can't touch any of it. I was like, huh? He's like, you can't touch any of the money. I'm going to give you a raise. He's like, but I need you to do me a favor. I need you to stock up. I need you to be able to put this money in savings so that you have a backup for your children. He's like, I need you to start looking at life insurance policies. I need you to start looking at investments. I want you to understand stocks and I want you to understand bonds. And what he did is he became a mentor. At this point, he wasn't just an employer anymore. He was an ally. He was a friend. It was the first time I had someone in my life who talked to me about financial literacy and talked to me about bettering myself and bettering my family, right? And I give shout out and kudos to him because it reminded me of the leader that I wanted to be, to make sure that I was making my people better, that I was helping them make good decisions for their lives, which would keep them engaged and more likely to help make better decisions for other people. When obstacles arise, you change your direction to reach your goal. You do not change your decision to get there. There was a point in my life, I'm working with Adam Goldfine. I'm loving life. I'm living in a nice part of town. I have an apartment. You know, he's helping me save money. I'm making about $40,000 a year. And I'm thinking, I'm happy. Everything's cush. I love my job. I love the education that I'm giving to people on radio and the TV shows that we're working on. We're doing consumer advice. And I'm dating this guy at the time. And he picks up this laptop that came from a Kroger. And the laptop's about this big. And apparently it was a little computer that they used to scan in wine. So he grabs it and there's a big number on the front that says, if found, call this number. Now, he leaves the laptop at my house and I call the number the next day and they say, hey, it's a lost inventory item. Take it to the local police department. No problem. I take it to the police department. I walk inside, hand them the laptop. The lady says, hey, the detective would like to speak with you. Like, okay. I go in, I talk to this detective and the detective says, where did you get this laptop? I said, my boyfriend got it. He's like, well, how did you end up with it? I said, he gave it to me. There's a number says call. I called the number. It says drop off at the local police department. And he says, are you sure that's what happened? I'm getting defensive at this point, right? I'm like, yes, that's what happened. I don't understand. Why are you interrogating me? And he's like, this laptop was reported stolen. And I was like, I understand. If I lost something, I probably would consider it stolen as well. And I was like, but it was lost. I'm here to return it. I'm not exactly sure what the problem is. He says, if anything I find out about this story is untrue, I'm coming back for you. I walk out of the police department, go home. The very next day, this officer shows up at my job. He locks me up. I have no access to pick up my kids. I have never been to jail before. I'm crying. I'm sitting in the back of a paddy wagon. My hands are behind my back, handcuffed. And he says, you're getting ready to get charged with a felony. He's like, you had stolen property in your possession. I'm taking you down. I'm taking your boyfriend down. I'm in this jail cell with prostitutes, with DUI. I have to get a tuberculosis test. I have to get an HIV test. I mean, they strip you down naked. They put you in a jumpsuit. It was the most humiliating time in my entire life. I'm sleeping on a cot for 2 days. I can't talk to my family. I can't even use the phone because apparently they hadn't booked my felony right and they couldn't get access to whether I had a bond. And so I wasn't even allowed the rights to call and see if anybody even picked up my kids from school. And I'm sitting here in this jail cell and I'm wondering, how did I get here? Like, what decisions did I make to get here? And I'm starting to get angry because I'm realizing the bias that just being a Black woman in a nice part of town with an item that was stolen made me a criminal. And here it is, this guy is trying to throw the book at me, a felony for a $500 laptop that came out of a Kroger that we brought to the police department. It's the third day in jail. I'm shackled to about 5 other women. We come into the courtroom. The judge is looking through the files. He gets to my case and he says, Smith, and he reads the charges on the warrant for my arrest. And he's like, there's no probable cause. He's like, woman, why are you here? And he says, get her out of here. I leave. I finally get access to my kids. Luckily, my family, my job was able to come and help and support and pick them up. And I now had a felony on my record, and I have to work on getting it expunged, because even though it was a false arrest, even though they should have never arrested me, I now have a mugshot that is on the internet. I'm mad. I'm angry. I am devastated. I am hurt. I am afraid. Every time a police officer pulls up behind me, alongside of me, I am fearful. And I'm challenged to say, why? What is it about me that you saw a criminal, that you saw someone who you would put the opportunity to where I had to prove myself innocent? You made me guilty the moment you booked me in, took my photo, and embarrassed me on the internet. And when I tell you that this picture floated on the internet, people called my job. I ended up having to sue the Fulton County Police Department through the UCLA to get my rights back, because I was not going to sit back and let them tarnish my name. I wasn't going to sit back and let them have a felony arrest on my record. Even though the charges were dropped, I wanted it all wiped away, and I was going to take them to court. And the police department in Fulton County made it hell on me. They came to my job several times. They threatened my family. They took my cell phone and property and wouldn't give it back. The more we pushed with the lawyers, the more they pushed back. I'll tell you this, trying to sue a police department is almost impossible because of qualified immunity. And there was times when I wanted to give up, and my lawyer would just say, Erikka, just give it up, right? We got it dropped. It was dismissed. At some point, the pictures on the internet will go away. Yeah, it's an arrest, but it wasn't a conviction. You're okay. And I said, absolutely not. There's other people out here who aren't going to fight the lies and the things that they did to me illegally. And I'm going to continue to fight this. And it took years. It took years to fight the police department, but I finally won. I was able to settle with them out of court. Most of that money went to my lawyers because I took every year of it to make sure it got done. But it wasn't about the money or the settlement against the police department. What it was about was being able to look at my children in the eye, was that if someone ever Googled my name and saw this photo, I could say to them without a fact that that wasn't me, that I did not do it. And that I wanted to make sure to fight for anybody else who had an opportunity in life to know that when someone puts something on you and tries to demean you and to challenge you and to falsify records and to lie on you, that you should fight with every means of every bit of who you are to get that taken care of, to get it expunged, and to be able to speak and tell that story. Because a lot of times people see arrest or see something on someone's record and they don't see the story. They don't know the truth behind it. They don't know, did that happen or not? They don't even know if they should believe you. And so I put that question here because I say, again, would you hire her? Just looking at that picture, I came into your dealership. I came into your automotive vendor spot. And I say, I want a job, but you look at my background and there's an arrest. It's not a conviction, but there's an arrest for felony theft by taking. Would you give me an opportunity? Would you listen? Would you hear my story? Would you judge me? These are the biases that happen every single day in our dealerships, in our stores, in the community, in the world, right? Where we don't see past who we think someone is and who they really are, because that picture is me, but it's not me, right? And so I just challenge you as you take this information back and you think about that and you think about those stories. And this is the first time I've ever shared this publicly. It's the first time I've ever shared this story in a live setting, but it's important to me because it's something I've held on for the last 10 or 11 years that has bothered me. And I was able to get out of that situation, buy my home, take care of my family, and become a better person, right? I love this quote. It says, they tried to bury me, but they didn't know I was a seed, right? They didn't know that put a fight in me and a passion in me to say that you will not hold me down. You will not hold me back. There is a you and me in every resume. This is important when you're looking at candidates and you're thinking about someone to hire, and you need to find a way to see yourself, right? Go back to who you were 10, 15, 20 years ago and ask yourself, don't base it on who you are today, right? We always want to hire people that, oh, I can see them as a mentor. Oh, that person reminds me of me. Not the me now. What about the you when you were a knucklehead? What about the you 15, 20 years ago? Remember that person and give somebody an opportunity and a chance. Give them a chance to be a better person. I left and ended up working at Audi, right? I left Adam Goldfein. I go through this arrest. I'm traumatized at the time, and I need another opportunity. And I need someone who's going to see past my expungement, because at this time, the felony arrest is still on my record. And here it is, Audi, a franchise dealership. The first time that I could work at a new car franchise, this guy, Kevin Finner, gave me a chance. He put me in rooms where I could speak. He allowed me to talk in meetings. He helped me run a BDC. He said, Erikka, I'm going to give you every opportunity. You're going to be my right-hand person, and I'm going to make sure that you're successful. This changed my life. The new car franchise opportunity put me on a trajectory that is exactly why I am where I am today. And he was a brother, right? He was someone who looked like me. He was someone who saw something in me past my resume, because I had buy here, pay here experience. It doesn't really translate over into the new car franchise. But what he saw was that I had hustle. And to this day, we're friends. To this day, we continue to celebrate each other. And I had successes in Audi, right? I had my team. I'll never forget this year, there was a contest to go to Budapest. And this contest is typically reserved for the general manager or the dealer principal. And he says, Erikka, you're never going to make the contest. You got to get 150% of market share to get to this contest. He said, you'll never make it. I said, but if I make it, can I go? He said, well, only general managers and dealer principals go. I said, I understand, but if I can get our store to 130% of our objective, can I go? He said, you know what? Sure. I had those guys in the dealership willing and dealing. They are walking up to customers saying, I got to get my boss to go to Budapest. Come on, this is a Budapest deal. They're throwing the deals on the table going, Budapest? We're hyped, we're rolling. It's a 3-month contest to get to Budapest. And I'll never forget when the trip incentive came out and they said, Erikka, you're going. Now get this, my GM at the time came to me and was like, I'll buy the trip from you for $5,000. Absolutely not. I'm going to Europe. I didn't even have a passport, but I'm going to figure out a way to get to Europe because this was a big deal, right? I'm a dropout. I got my GED. You know, I was living off of food stamps in Fort Ord, California. I was not supposed to end up in Budapest on a trip with the top 10 sales managers in the country. And I'm in Europe. I'm at the award ceremony. It's mostly white men and one white woman. And everybody's supposed to you can bring a significant other. I didn't have a significant other at the time. So I'm there and the guy shakes my hand and says, hey, so where's your husband? He's looking for the winner. In his mind in that moment, there was no way that he thought that I was the one who won the contest. Even though I had the big badge that said winner, he's like, hey, is your husband here, the winner? Who are you here with? Back to that story, right? He had never seen a Black woman in a position to be at a trip where general managers and dealer principals were only supposed to attend. And again, this goes to the opportunities where you can push yourself to be in a situation and to step outside of a box and to not allow yourself to be limited by limitations or rules or things that someone else says that you can or cannot do it. And then this becomes a story that I can tell. It becomes an inspiration to those around me and even to myself, to my children, to continue to push on. It's never a gamble when you bet on yourself. This is my son, Aaron, MasterChef Junior. This is one of the times that I had to leave automotive. He wanted to be an actor. I took him to a audition one day and they say, hey, we love him. We'll take him, but you're going to have to leave your job for 3 months. And as you know, working in automotive, there's no family leave of leaving your job for 3 months. I talked to the dealership. I was at Audi at the time. And they said, we're just going to have to send you on unpaid leave. There's no FMLA. What are you going to do? And I was like, but this is an opportunity for him to be on TV. They don't pay you to be on these shows either. They'll pay for your hotel and they pay for your food. And I said, you know what? All my life, I've been risks. All my life, I've been gambling. I'm going to take this Los Angeles to be on MasterChef Junior. He was season 7. My entire family went to LA. It was a difficult time, right? There was times I wasn't sure how I was going to pay the rent back at the house. There was times when I was going to be able to keep the lights on. But what I know is that the opportunity he had from being on TV, for being a part of this show, was another thing that I was going to instill in him, the same message, right? take a chance, bet on yourself. Don't let anyone ever tell you that you can't make it. My daughter has a very similar story. She graduated in 2020. This is the year of COVID. I can't tell you the tears that came down my face when I saw her graduate. Now, she had to graduate virtually because it was a COVID year, but I didn't get a chance to graduate. I didn't get to walk. I didn't get to wear the cape. I didn't get to wear the sash. I didn't get to sign the yearbook. And to see her in her cap and gown and to know that she made it, to know that she didn't have a baby at 18, she's 22 years old now, still no kids, thank God. But to see her and say she made it despite the obstacles, right? She's fluent in Mandarin. She went to Taiwan for 4 months on a scholarship exchange program. She paints and she does caricatures, and she raised her own money to pay for herself to get to China, because I instill in my children the very same thing for myself, right? That you got to earn it, that you got to push yourself, that if you want something, that you're going to fight for it and do every opportunity that you can to be the best that you can possibly be. So I find out that I'm not the only one. These are my sisters, my automotive sisters. I ran into Patrice by Jasmine. I found her on Instagram, and I found out that Patrice Banks was going to open up a all-girls auto clinic in Philadelphia. And I didn't know her from a can of paint, right? I just see her on Instagram and it says grand opening coming up. And I decided I was going to get on a plane, fly to Philadelphia and attend her grand opening, because I had never seen a Black woman repair shop where she had all female technicians working on cars. And she was a Black woman who looked like me. I was like, I got to be there. I have got to support this woman. So I fly out there, I knock on her door and I say, listen, I know you don't know me. Your grand opening is tomorrow, but I just flew out here with my friend from Atlanta just to meet you. Patrice took me in with welcome arms. She not only invited me to spend the night with her, she took me to the White House the very next day because she was going to be speaking on trades. And our friendship began just like that. A random post on Instagram became a flight to Philadelphia to support her, because that's what sisterhood looks like, right? A lot of times we'll talk the talk of what it means to be a support and what it means to be there for someone. But what it really means is putting action behind your words. And that action translated into friendship. You see the picture where I met Carrie. That was at the Woman in Automotive event. We weren't friends at the time. We didn't know that years later, our connections would come back together, and that these women that I was meeting in these spaces were the missing pieces to a puzzle that would one day come together to be this very event that you see right now, right? Amanda, Patrice, Carrie, and I coming together to start WOCAN. And it all started because of faith, of believing in ourselves and believing that we could make something that would continue to support women in automotive. This is my daughter, Joy. This is a very important picture to me. It was made in March 20th of 2019. And I want you to read the last line where it says, I had just had my daughter, Joy. I had her on March 1st. This is 19 days later. I don't even know why I'm out of the house, because I was a crazy nutcase at the time. But right here I say, I may have slowed down, but I haven't stopped. I'm still striving to be on the cover of Automotive News by the time I'm 40. This is March of 2019. Speak what you seek until you can see what you said. I believe in manifestation. I believe that when you want something, you got to put it out there. You got to write it. You got to tell other people. You've got to manifest it. You've got to believe it every single day and look and say, this is going to happen. Let everybody around you know, this is what I want. I didn't even know there was a 40 under 40 for Automotive News, right? But here it is. I'm putting in 2019 that I want to be on the cover of Automotive News because I'm at this event and they actually happen to have this magazine on the table. And in my mind, I wanted to believe I can be on this magazine cover. And 2 years later, I would have that opportunity. I was nominated as a 40 under 40 Automotive News candidate by Ally. In that time, I was able to go and speak at NADA, Digital Dealer, at conferences all around. WOCAN, the news and the articles and the press that we got around WOCAN really catapulted to my career to a whole nother level. The exposure from the interviews that we got, from now I'm the same person I had always been, but just the exposure that WOCAN gave put me on a trajectory that entirely changed my life. And this is why we are so passionate about bringing other women along with us. This is why we are so passionate about these events where you can continue to meet other people, where you can get up on these stages, where we want to sponsor you to go out, because this is what it looks like. Your whole life can change from one opportunity. And it starts with number one, just believing that it's possible. And then number two, being plugged into a network that cares about you. Speaking of manifestation, this was an experience in my life of something that I had questioned for 35 years. This is a message from my mom on Ancestry. She went and got her DNA test. For years in my life, I didn't really believe that me and my sister could be from the same mom and dad, right? We looked nothing alike. And I used to tell my mom, I think I was switched at birth. And she would laugh and say, no, you're not. No, you're not. I said, somebody at the hospital messed up and they left the wrong baby and you picked up the wrong baby. And I really belong to like a king or queen somewhere. And she would laugh at me and say, Erikka, I'm going to get a DNA test one day to prove to you that I'm your mom. So here her in August of 2018, she says, you were not switched at birth, because she goes and gets this ancestry test done. And I got one and it says, sure enough, she's my mom. Damn, I'm not, some rich queen is my mom somewhere because I was switched at birth. But then something strange happens a few months later. I get a message 6 months later from a lady named Yolanda. And she says, hey, Erikka, I've got 2 matches and they're extremely high, and you may be one of them. I want to see how we're related. So we go back and forth on these messages and we're talking. She has family in Ohio. I have family in California. We just can't put the pieces together. And then she says, my brother is the only person who was stationed in California back in the 80s. His name is Derek Daniel. And I'm like, I still don't know how I'm related to you, lady. So I call my mom and I'm like, this lady is on Ancestry and she's saying that she might be family with us, but I don't really know how it's connected. Do we know anybody in Ohio? She's like, no. And I was like, well, do you know anybody named Derek? And she busts out crying. I mean, ugly cry. And I'm like confused. I'm like, are we supposed to know who Derek is? And she's like, Derek is your dad. I am 9 months pregnant at the time. Joy was born March 1st, 2019. This message was sent February 4th, 2019. It's 3 weeks before I'm supposed to have my daughter. And I find out that my dad of 35 years is not my dad. And this guy who I've never met, who I'm messaging his sister on Ancestry, is my father. If you ever heard the phrase speechless, this is literally what I was. I was so traumatized that I lost my voice for about 2 weeks. When I say lost my voice, I could not talk. I'm pregnant, I'm stressed. I'm in the doctor's office, like talking. And as I would talk, I would get choked up. I'd be like, I'm here and the words would not come out. Literally the words I could not process what was happening. And the doctor said that it was like post-traumatic stress. They're like, between the pregnancy, your hormones, finding out this traumatic information, your brain and your body are not connecting. You want to talk, but when you start to say something that brings you in that mindset, he said it's a psychological thing. There's nothing wrong with your throat. There's nothing wrong with your voice. It's a psychological thing. You are literally speechless, which at 9 months pregnant, when you need to talk to your doctors and all that, is not a good look. But I am blown away by the fact that this is happening. And at the same time, I'm talking to this guy, Derek, who's in Arizona, on the phone every night as we try to put our lives together about, what does this look like? And for the first time in my life, I looked at a picture of someone and I saw someone who looked just like me. The same slanted eyes, same wide space between the nose. And I have a sister. I have a 30-year-old sister who's 10 years younger than me that I had never met. And I've got a grandma and I've got an aunt. And for people like, wait, but that's sad because your dad, no, I was like, no, I got 2 dads now. I didn't lose one. I just gained another one, right? And my world has just changed in this one moment, that everything that I thought was a truth ends up being something completely different. And it was a blessing to me. I tell you that to say you are only one decision from a totally different life. My mom's decision to go get the ancestry test because she wanted to find out her genealogy, and my decision to get the ancestry test because I told her that I was switched at birth because her and I didn't look alike, actually led us to a surprise that completely changed the trajectory of my entire life. I'll tell you that I met my dad 3 years ago in February, and on my 35th birthday in April, he sent me 35 birthday cards. And every single one of them was like like a 1-year-old car with $1 in it, a 2-year-old card with $2 in it. And he did it all the way up to 35. And he put the money in and he sent them separate. He didn't send them in one box. He literally put them in the mail. And every week I got a birthday card for all 35 years that he missed. And he said, I will never miss another birthday of yours. And I recently, April 18th, turned 40. And I was thinking about all the things that I could do on my 40th birthday, hot girl weekend, I should party. And I said, you know what? I've already missed 35 years with my dad. I'm going to go see him. So I go to Arizona, I see my dad, and he throws me a surprise birthday party, 40th birthday party. You just got to imagine the feelings of emotion of celebrating 40th birthday party with a dad that I didn't know, of all the birthdays that we missed. And yet in that moment, all I could think about is how many more we have to go. You're one decision away from a totally different life. Meeting my father allowed me to have a new courage, a new confidence about myself, because I realized that the world is so much bigger than you could even imagine, that there's everything out there, that the world is your oyster, and that you just have to continue to knock down doors. You got to continue to push through. And I wasn't afraid of anything at this point. I mean, my life had already been crazy. I've been arrested. I found out my dad's not my dad. What is going on, right? There is nothing else that can stop me. And I get an opportunity from a woman from Marion, Illinois, population of 17,000 people. And she says, I want you to come work for me. She's like, I am a woman general manager and I want to bring your family out here. You can work from 9 to 5 every day where, she's like, it's going to be the best opportunity you ever had. And for the first time in my life, I'm being recruited. I mean, I felt like a football player. This lady is like calling, she's sending gifts to my house. She's got, a billboard with my name on it. She put my daughter a toy chest in my office and said, if you come out here, all of this is possible. That's a bed. She literally put a bed in there so when Joy came to work with me, she could go to sleep and take a nap. Like, I had never been with someone who was so open-minded to a different way of the car business. The car business had always been the same, and she challenged that, right? Again, thinking outside the box, being able to work for a place that just says the limitations are only by what you put in your mind. And I loved working for Ashley. She was an amazing boss. She was an amazing mentor. But then I got another opportunity. Walser reached out to me. They had heard about me at an event and they said, what if you could be a GM? What if you could be the general manager of your own store? Now here it is. I've been in automotive now for almost 20 years. Next year, it'll be 20 years. And I've watched people who've only been in for 5 or 6 years get promoted to GM. And I said, could this be the opportunity for me? Could this be a moment where I could finally get a chance to be the GM? And Walser gave me that opportunity. I've been with them for the last 6 months. I haven't gotten my store yet. I'm currently a GSM at a Chevy store, but that opportunity is coming. And I tell you guys this story because I have 3 takeaways, right? Move forward. Always seek new paths, right? Continue to believe that you may not know what the next step is. You may not be able to have the foresight to see the future because you don't know what lies ahead. I just need you to get that GPS going, put a destination in and take the journey along the way. But don't forget to look backwards as well, because our past is a good reflection and reminder of where we've been. This was very enlightening for me just to go back and remind myself of those days where I was taking coins out of the backseat of my Delta 88 Oldsmobile, when I was stopping at the light because my car was breaking down. Because when customers come into the dealership and they need reliable transportation, I remember that story. I remember how hard it was to not know how I was going to get back and forth to work. And I challenge you to remember that. To remember that every person that walks into your dealership is a person, is a story, is a face, is a name, and that you should treat them with all the grace and the passion that you can, because they need it, because they may be an Erikka Tiffany who just needs another opportunity to get from $6 an hour to $8 an hour. And if you get them in that car, you can change everything. My last takeaway is to embrace the setbacks. Things are going to happen. Sometimes things come out of you from out of nowhere. Right? You get arrested, you're someone in your family dies, you're dealing with a health concern, and it feels like everything in your life is turning upside down and you just can't see the future. But you got to believe that it's not what's happening to you, it's happening through you. It's a part of your story. It's a part of the struggle that's going to make you stronger and better than ever before. This is a $2 bill. I love this because this was actually gifted to me from somebody on this call, Chris Becker. He sent this to me in the mail a few months ago, and it's because I told him the story about how I got into automotive because I was getting paid $2 more an hour. I didn't come for some noble event to be on Automotive News or Dealer Magazine. I didn't come because I wanted to start WOCAN and help women. I didn't have any of those reasons. When I got into automotive, it was just because I wanted to make $2 more an hour. And he shared a story where he too left the job, where he just wanted to make a couple bucks more an hour, and it changed his life. And he sent me this plaque of a $2 bill. And it's one of my most cherished possessions because it's a reminder to me of the humility and of the humble beginnings, that when you start something and when you bet on yourself, it's never a gamble. So thank you to Chris Becker who sent that to me. I will cherish that $2 bill to this day. So I just want to thank you all for this amazing opportunity to tell my story, to commune with you, to give you a glimpse inside my life in a story that I've never told anywhere before. You now have the vulnerability of my secrets, but I believe that that is just the beginning. Our best and brightest days are still ahead, and may it encourage you to continue to share your story. May it encourage you to look at your candidates for hire a little bit differently. May you look at your customers who need help a little bit differently, and may you bet on yourself, because when you do, it's never a gamble.